Good morning. I'm Catherine Parker. I'm your county legislator, and I'm also majority leader for the Westchester Board of Legislators. And last year, with our new county executive, George Latimer, we came to Mamaroneck to talk to people within my district to have sort of a back and forth on the county budget. We did the presentation, and the people in the audience came up and had their 3 minutes to speak, and not that it was a question and answer to each point, but it was it allowed for somebody who wanted to be heard on an issue to come and to just go on the record that this is an issue or something that you are very pleased to see in the proposed budget. And so I thought I'd like to do that again, and I will let you know that I did reach out to our county executive and invited him to join me, which he said he would be delighted. However, he is a as we all know, who really makes his way around the county and has a lot on his plate. So he said, I'll be there if I can, and if I can't, you know, enjoy. So I also want to take a moment and just say thank you. I see Supervisor Nancy Seligson here, and Administrator Steve Altieri, and Deputy Supervisor Jane Elkind-Eny. Thank you for letting us do this in the Mamaroneck Town Center. I greatly appreciate that for a meeting on a Saturday morning. So now to the budget. I have to say this 2020 proposed budget is what we received from the county executive, I have to say just felt like a breath of fresh air. It is a very, very good budget. Let me start with some of the highlights. Number one, for the property tax levy, there is a proposed $1 million property tax cut. So we're not adding to the property tax, we are cutting property tax, $1 million. That I would imagine sounds like pretty good news, considering that it's been many years since there's been any sort of cut, and in general, that's a very, for most levels of government, that's a pretty difficult thing to do. I'm saying hi to people now over the microphone, you know, as they come in. Good to see you, Mary Ellen. So how were we able to accomplish that? Well, this year, as you know, we were working with our state delegation to pass the Property Tax Relief Act, which basically equalized the sales tax throughout the county, because our major cities were paying more than most of the other municipalities. And we got that passed. And what that did was it allowed more revenue coming in to Westchester that would offset anything that could be made up with by property taxes. The other thing that we did with that Property Tax Relief Act was we had a local share. 30% comes back to the municipalities and the school districts. And I'm sure Supervisor Seligson was pretty glad to see that there was a nice share, right? Felt like, really allowed local governments to maybe look at their wish list of things that they knew the community needed, and this would allow greater ease at doing that. The next item, hold on, my page flipped here. So previous to this year's budget, there have been significant issues in our previous budgets that actually were things that for many of my first years on the Board of Legislators, I thought these are dangerous practices to sort of put in as almost like a permanent answer to offsetting property taxes, and that was borrowing for things that normally shouldn't be borrowed for. So the previous administration had basically said, I'm keeping your taxes flat, but then over here, there was a lot of borrowing for things that were really operational costs. pension, for instance, that actually shouldn't come out of borrowing. You should be able to figure out your revenues and pay for it out of that. Tax certioraries. Now that's when somebody is grieving their property taxes, and there may be money that gets refunded back to the homeowner or the business. And so instead of putting that money in escrow and then paying money back that had come in, nope, we were spending that money and then we had to borrow to replace that. So that practice has gone away. The other thing that we were able to do, and last year we did it as a placeholder, the idea that one-shots, selling off a county asset as a one-time revenue boost, we don't have any of that. That is not a sustainable practice. That's why that's not really a great idea. You know, you get one opportunity and then what are you going to do the next year? It's not really helping the overall situation. So there's none of that in this budget. The other some of the highlights, and again, I give the county executive a lot of credit because this is what he handed us on day one when we received it, but $1 million towards economic development in the form of reaching out to startups, trying to really work with building business here, which I think, again, if you think long-term, that's great for the economy in so many ways, the local economy. Getting businesses, getting people working, spending their money here, and using another, again, that revenue offsets property tax. Environmental programs. There's some really good news in this budget for environmental programs. First of all, I know that communities like Rye and Mamaroneck and Larchmont have been doing wonderfully with your environmental programs. You've all been looking at and have been doing a food scrap recycling program, which is fantastic, and I commend you all for that. The county recognizes that really the county needs to really create a program for all the municipalities to get other municipalities to join in and to find some incentives for that, which would probably be in the form of tipping fees. So we have had a food waste study that we've been working on all year. It's almost ready to go to the press, as we say, but I think in the in the 2020 budget, you will be seeing some initiative that's going to come out of this. It's going to be helping the municipalities and focused on that. We have an energy savings program that is saving the county, I think it's $1.7 million next year, and that is a program that our energy director, Peter McCart, has been working on, which is basically getting our county buildings off the grid during high peak times. So in the summer, when we've got a heat wave going on, the county buildings will we will be doing a combination of things, including just knowing that there are certain areas that maybe there's no air conditioning, we don't have people in the buildings, so why keep the air conditioning on those times? And for other things that are very essential, generators, but getting off the grid, and that the ability to free up the grid was something that was so attractive to our energy providers that this was a real savings for us to work this out. One thing that I, as a county legislator, had worked on for a number of years was to encourage the county to electrify its fleet. And I mean, when I say fleet, I mean more than cars, but really we're looking to electrify buses. And even now there are garbage trucks that are operating on a electric hybrid model. So our DPW has been really terrific, and our planning board, and Peter McCart, again, our energy director. This has been, I think, one of the initiatives that they've really run with. They have added more to our electric fleet than ever before, and more types of electric vehicles are going to be on our roads, which really, in the long run, this is great for the environment, but it's really a cost savings I drive a Volt, so I speak with some knowledge on this. It is, it's a fantastic way to, the maintenance on electric vehicles is next to nothing compared to an internal combustion engine, and so this is a really great way to save money. There's a tree planting program, which may not excite many of you, but again, I think it's a wonderful way to, do our part with taking some carbon out of the air. And then another item that is something that kind of it does create more money that we've had to spend, but it's a very good program, and that is for criminal justice reform. Not only do we want to help people once they've gotten out of the system, but really make sure that people are getting their fair day in court. They're able to, if they do have an issue with the law, that evidence is turned over to them, and that, if there's somebody who is a young person, young people can make mistakes and they can learn and grow. And how do we treat and handle that person in society that maybe doesn't just mean you lock them away. So we were hoping that when the state passed their package for criminal justice reform, that the expenses were going to be, would be given as a form of a mutual, aid from the state. That hasn't really come to pass, so we are looking at what we can do within the county to really, really help, and I'll get to that again a little bit later on. Two other miscellaneous things that I want you to be aware. Going back to November of 2016, I was writing you saying that we have a problem with a number of hate incidents that have been cropping up that was happening here locally, but all over the county, and that for the last 3 years has not stopped. In 2016, one of the first things I said was we need to be keeping a database and doing educational outreach, that this is a problem that's not going away. We have to understand this problem, and we have to figure out and work with our municipalities and figure out how do we curb this problem, because truly human rights and the idea that another individual looks at somebody and judges them based on their color or their religion, and that there's I love the saying that I see all over Mamaroneck, there's no hate in this home, and I think that that's something that we were very focused on. There is a new position that's been funded. It's an investigator and an education outreach. So the investigator, at times there are incidents that are happening. It's not a crime, but we know this is something that should be counted and should be addressed, and then the education outreach. And I think that was a fantastic, it's great to see that the County Executives Administration heard from the board, heard from the Human Rights Commission, heard from other people within the community that this was something that needed to be added. And then I'm sure this last one will be a piece of welcome news to my elected officials here in Mamaroneck. We actually have a new new position within the administration to study sewer consolidation. How about that? It's good news. So that's a $2.1 billion budget, not a small number by any stretch of the imagination. As I say, and again, the property tax has been about $560 million to cover that, and again, a $1 million cut. So it's something. It's not insignificant, but we are not raising taxes. We're going in the other direction. Now, what did the board do once we received the budget? As I say, there was so much good news in this budget. We really just focused on two major entities. One being our goal of really helping people within Westchester County who are here and really trying to work and be productive members of the community. But when you have, when you're between being able to work and what are we doing with the children, child care, that was something that we as the board have been hearing for many, many years. The lack of really good accredited child care centers, and actually the concern that we heard this year is the employees at those very good centers not staying and not making it their career because the ability to pay for those good people compared to New York City was substantially different. So we added $900,000 to the county budget to go specifically towards the daycare providers, which we know will go to help increase the salaries for their employees. And I think that was a really good move. We also added money for many nonprofits who have been great partners to the county. In many, many ways, these nonprofits are saving the county a lot of money. I'll give you one, for instance. Legal Services of the Hudson Valley, great organization. It is a group of attorneys. They work with people that are really have a legal issue and are struggling, trying to have representation. And so they often nowadays are working on eviction prevention. Have a real problem in many of the big cities in Westchester County, particularly Yonkers, where the number of people that are facing foreclosure and eviction has really jumped. And why is that, in case you're wondering why now? You know all those commercials you see on TV for those wonderful reverse mortgages? Do not do that. Please do not do that. This is like a PSA. I'll say it again. Do not take out a reverse mortgage. It is a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. And senior citizens are now finding that they are about to be losing their homes. This is what we realize. We have to help keep these people in their homes because, and whichever way you look at it, the way that's the right thing to do from one, a human being to another human being, or if you just look at it as a financial issue and say, wow, once somebody loses their home, then what are you paying for to help keep them, sheltered? What does that look like and how expensive is that? And let me tell you, it's more expensive than the legal fee that keeps them in their home. So we did the math on this in a number of different ways, and we added about $800,000 for specifically for these nonprofit partners that provide a wonderful service. It allows for our workforce. We don't have to add the number of people that are working within these nonprofit groups to our payroll at the county. It's really an efficiency in many ways, and they do wonderful work. We added in total just over $2 million, so not a significant amount when you think of the $1.8 billion budget, but again, we really focused on those two areas. Lastly, the one area that you may have wondered, are you adding to that? There is an increase of $275,000 for salaries for legislators. So here I am, and here's what I have to say about that. Not my idea. Yes. Now? Okay. All right. That's all right. This is probably the one point that I don't want to be up there, but okay.
Catherine, if you're not turned to the left,
okay.
the signal's coming out of that closet.
Not turn to the left. But you want me sitting in the middle? Yeah. Okay. I'll do that.
I don't want to miss anything you say.
Okay.
So,
Stand on one leg.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
We'll use one of those.
Sure. Hello. Good. Yeah. Okay. You've got a comfortable chair here, Nancy. This is nice. All right. So as I was saying, there is an increase of $275,000 to give legislators a raise. Just some basic numbers and facts. The last time the salaries were raised was in 2005. The base salary is $49,200. And the proposal is to go to $75,000. So yes, 15 years and a fairly significant increase. Where am I on this? I will tell you that I think I would have preferred if we had had a process in the new term that would allow for some discussion. There is previously you had a salary commission that looked at this and presented to the board their recommendation. The last time that was done was in 2008, and they did actually suggest a salary increase that would go up each year by the cost of living adjustment. So if you do the math on that, that brings it, if let's say that was passed, it was actually rejected by the board at that time. If that had been passed, that would bring our salaries up to about $67,000. So I think the thought for those that had looked at this was that we do this now and we don't touch it for a while. Where we are in relation to some other boards, you can look at Long Island and Nassau and Suffolk. Both of those boards of legislature, one makes over $100,000, the other is at $78,000. And then if you go the other way to Rockland County, they just introduced and passed their increase on Monday, and they went from $32,000 to $49,600. Different size boards, and I will say one last thing on this, that it's a part-time job being a legislator, and that can be, there are people that do that as a part-time job, meaning they come for their meetings and they leave, and they do some, they have some outside income. And then there are other people that really think, you know what, I really love public service, and though I get paid for a part-time job, this is my full-time job. Now, where am I? Personally, I will say this, that I see both sides of this. I haven't made up my mind where I am. We haven't voted. It'll be on Monday. I want to hear from you. I have not heard from people in my district on this. The people that I've had some conversation with, I've heard, sort of across the board process, but I know how hard you work, and thank you for those that think that actually that sounds like a bargain in many ways for my service. So at this point, what I'd like to do, turn it over to all of you. I want to hear about what particular area you are interested in, what you want to be put on the record, and it is a little after 11, and I think we should be done probably within a half an hour or so. And so if you just would come up to the microphone and say your name and give us your name and where you live, and then the microphone is yours for 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Vince Malfitano. I may have had the pleasure of seeing you the other night when I spoke at the county board. Mm-hmm. I'm very concerned about this raise, not only for the amount of the raise, but the process. There was no commission, no committee, nobody studied it. It just kind of came out of somebody's purse or suitcase at the last minute. The county executive, with all due respect, made a good show on somebody's front lawn before the election, talking about this heralded property tax relief, which means he knew it was in the budget, but said nothing about these massive pay increases. I consider that rather disingenuous and political grandstanding. But when I spoke at the county board, I mentioned to you, and you just brought it up, if you went to cost of living, this raise is a massive increase above cost of living, even if cost of living was allowed every year. Now, I was a teacher. I worked for 30-some-odd years. I retired with a small pension. After 5 years, I get a cost of living increase. I got a $15 increase in my pension. I'm on Social Security. I got a very minuscule increase on my Social Security. People go into public service not for the money, I hope.
I can tell you that is
I
definitely
understand,
the
and I
case.
appreciate that. And
Not the money.
we should pay people in public service a decent salary for the work they do, as you do. But here's the problem. I've spoken with some state legislators, and you're aware of this, and I brought it up the other night, as that lady from Indivisible did, who was also very concerned about these raises. The state of New York has to reauthorize our sales tax increase, the 14% increase percentage in our sales tax next year. And as I said to you and the others that night, you guys are going to have one tough sell, especially if I have anything to say about what their agenda is, telling the people of New York State and us, we will approve your sales tax again, when we see that it looks like what you've done with the money is engorge yourselves on the public dime. Offering a $40,000 increase to people at the Board of Elections, commissioners, I believe the vice chairman or whoever under Mr. Latimer will make more than he does. I don't want to get into the politics of the grandstanding of his saying, I don't want to raise, and putting all you guys on the dime like you're money grabbing, and oh, but I'm holier than thou. I'll leave that for another day. But the thing that really gets to me, and I don't want to hog this up too much, but I appreciate the closeness of this conversation. It's unseemly, it's unwarranted, it's unjust. A 52% increase in someone's salary who might have been on the board for 2 or 4 years or just elected. I spoke with the guys who just got elected up in Yorktown. He says, well, I won't be voting on it. I said, well, what's your position? Well, I'd be against it. Well, that's nice. You don't have to actually bear the wrath of the politicos because you don't have to vote. I said, well, would you put out a statement to the guys within the district that you're replacing that you would like him to vote against it? Okay. Well, look, I know politics is funny. I've been following it for 50 some odd years. But I must tell you, this has got to be one of the most ridiculous political moves I've seen by anybody in a long time. We're going to hit everybody with a sales tax increase, as everybody in Mamaroneck now has to pay more in sales tax. So we can get a 52% raise in our salary and give a 26% raise to all of our commissioners and managers. And by the way, it's a nice Christmas or Hanukkah gift because it's all retroactive back to January 1st of this year. So a commissioner making $100 and something thousand is going to get a nice $26,000 check in his purse or her purse or wallet. And please tell me if I'm wrong, if the raise goes through, you will get a retroactive raise for this year.
No, that is not correct.
So the county legislators won't?
No retroactive.
Okay,
No.
well, I guess how many hundreds of other managers will? Hey, when I was a teacher, I worked without a contract for 5 years, and we got a little retro pay. I get it. And like you, I went into teaching not for the money. After 33 years of full-time work in New York City, a 4-year college degree, a master's degree, a degree to be a superintendent, and my law license and law degree, my final salary was $104,000.
Mr. Malfitano,
So I'm asking you, and I apologize, but I know that, there's a lot of people, there's only about 10 people here, and that's fine. I hope you actually do the honorable thing and say, this is ridiculous, because I'm going to beat Andrea Stewart Cousins and the rest of my legislators over the head and say to them, deny Westchester County the sales tax next year, because they just don't know what to do with the money. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I think I saw Lisa's hand up next. And then Hillary, you're next.
Hi, I recently started working for
You want to move the microphone
Thank
closer?
you.
Yeah, sure.
I was at the same public hearing, and in addition to hearing you express your point last week, there was testimony that was very compelling to me that I just wanted to share, because there was a young woman who came. She's paying her way through college, and by clerking, assisting a local judge in Westchester County, and she spoke at the public hearing to the legislators, saying that she hopes one day to sit in the chair and be a legislator, for her district. But at $49,000, that's not something that she would be able to afford to do. She doesn't see herself having a second job or a primary job that would allow her the ability to devote the amount of time she would want to represent her constituents. And so she was saying that in hopes of furthering her career, that this seems like the right amount of money based on what she's seen as the amount of skill, talent, effort, time that goes into doing the job well. And for just the 2 weeks that I've seen as well, as far as what county legislators do, it's not a part-time job. There's a lot that goes into reading all the briefing materials, spending the time talking with constituents, and many late nights. And the last point that I want to make is there was a Compensation Advisory Committee in 2008, and Legislator Parker said that the board voted against it at the time. We can all remember what happened in 2008. That probably made it difficult to pass that at the time. And so I think that if there hadn't been a Great Recession in 2008, the board at that time would have approved the pay raise, and the small increment above that amount where you would be today, I think is justified.
Thank you. Hillary? Hillary, then Supervisor Seligson, and then Mr. Tolchin.
Hi, my name's Hilary Short, and I'm a resident.
You can take it out if you want.
Okay, of the village of Mamaroneck and the town, I found out recently. So I do agree with the pay rise. I think it's, I don't know all the legislators, but the ones I know, and Ruth being newly elected, I saw what she did, and Nancy Barr, I've seen the ones I do know work very, very hard. And I have a recruitment agency, and I place high-end housekeepers and nannies and household staff. And even if a family is only here for 6 months of the year, they have to pay $65K for a housekeeper. And that's even if they're, and so I think $75K is like a no-brainer. I think my concerns, like Catherine knows because I post stuff, is the health, I feel like, but I think it's on obviously it's a federal level and not a county level, is the healthcare crisis. I mean, I haven't had health insurance for 3 years because I can't afford $800 a month with an $8,500 deductible, and the only doctor in Mamaroneck that takes that policy is Open Door, and I can go there for free anyway and just pay them, because I tell them I make enough money and I just pay them a contribution, and I'm not paying $8,500 a year to go there, trust me. So I think I would like to see more, the kicking the can down the road is more a federal thing, is the stuff that goes, the pension plans and the healthcare stuff being more balanced out. But I totally think you earn every penny of $75K.
Thank you. I will just say, since this does have a county piece of this, in that when I mentioned the nonprofits that we were adding money to the budget to fund, one of those nonprofits is Open Door Medical Centers. And, they're a fantastic health center in our community. We are very, very lucky to have them. They do wonderful work. And they will, as you know, they will, lots of people walk through the door who are not insured, and it is based upon what you can pay. And so understanding that this is a great facility, we gave them, it's not a lot of money, $275,000, but it is something that I hope will really help. On the federal level, I couldn't agree with you more. That is something that absolutely has to be addressed. I will just say I have a plan for that, and we should talk later. Mr. Tolchin, I'm sorry, Supervisor Seligson. Then.
Hi, I'm Nancy Seligson, Supervisor of the Town of Mamaroneck, and I live at 7 Douglas Lane in Larchmont. I want to thank Legislator Parker for holding this budget hearing here in the town of Mamaroneck. I used to be quite involved in the county when I ran the Environmental Management Council in the county and had several other positions on committees where I followed the budget much more closely, I must admit. But I am impressed with a lot of parts of this budget. I do think that the county has to be realistic about the actual costs of all of the services and programs that are provided. I would actually be in favor of not decreasing the tax levy, but actually maintaining it at a consistent level so that there aren't large spikes or changes as we do in the town of Mamaroneck, so that we have a more consistent budget. And I think it's more realistic for funding what needs to be done. I'm very much in favor, of course, of the position that has yet to be announced, except as a position for the study of the consolidation of the sewer districts. The town of Mamaroneck has worked very hard with its sister municipalities, the city of New Rochelle, Village of Pelham Manor, and Village of Larchmont, to renovate and repair our sewer infrastructure so that it would be a perfect candidate for consolidation under the county. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I have also been a real supporter of Peter McCart in the effort to make the county more sustainable, because we've actually have incredible opportunities there that were unfortunately lost in the last 8 years before George Latimer was became county executive. So there's lots of areas for energy savings and sharing of services that could save the county lots and lots of money. I know that. In terms of the legislator increases, I believe that the legislators are due an increase. I believe certainly that the commissioners and management in the county also deserve raises, and they haven't had a raise in 14 years. That is not a reasonable way to run anything. In the town of Mamaroneck, we also have annual increases for people based on cost of living and the economic situation. So I definitely support that and hope that that will come to fruition.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Tolchin.
Good morning. My name is David Tolchin. I actually just have a few questions about the budget, and I don't want to get into too many, granular details. But, and by the way, as an aside, the increase in the legislature's salaries of $275,000 is fully justified, and it's a tiny amount of money. When you look at the entire budget, it's really almost trivial. But I understood that the 2019 county budget was about $1,944,000,000. It's a big number, almost $2 billion, but 1,944. And I thought, tell me if I have this wrong, that the proposed budget for 2020 is about $2.1 billion.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I can tell you, I'll get to why is that the case. In 2019, we had our biggest, our union, the CSEA, 4,500 employees. That was not, hadn't been fully negotiated yet, so that was one. And now all our unions actually have been, all the contracts have been resolved. So that explains a pretty significant chunk, but not the complete chunk. And I will say there's an additional $54 million that had to do with Raise the Age. That was where
I'm sorry, couldn't quite.
Raise the Age is the state program that changed 16 and 17-year-olds from, keeping them out of the prison system, and we had, that was a significant amount that we had to invest to be ready for that program.
Okay. I think you probably just answered my question.
I had a feeling, and that's why I jumped in, because you asked a question, I answered it. Your next question.
Well, I want to just stick with this one just for a moment. I mean, the increase is $150 million plus. And maybe you've already answered this, but how much of that is attributable to the union contract increases?
A significant portion,
Yeah, do you know
very,
the
very
number, or-
significant. I mean, again, I would say it was probably close to $100 million.
Okay. I also see that, I have a lot of questions, but I won't spend, a tremendous amount of time in this forum. But I was interested, the capital projects budget is about $195 million. It says funded primarily through the issuance of bonds. What is the current level of county debt? How much is out there in what the county owes through bonds?
Sure. So let me explain the process, because for many people, they're probably wondering about what is the capital budget. So that's all our infrastructure. Those are all the roads and bridges and all the big projects that happen throughout the county with our buildings. And why do we go to bond market for that? We go because the good news is we want these things to be, lasting. If you're going to rebuild a bridge, you want that bridge, it's going to last for generations. So it makes sense that you spread the cost of that bridge over, it's not just on the taxpayers of today, but that the taxpayers who move into our communities down the road, that they're also having a part of this. So that's to the nature of it. To the debt service, interestingly enough, if you look at GASB or the sort of municipal best practices, our debt service is actually rather low.
Well, I see it's 96.7 million.
Right.
I was wondering what the total amount of debt outstanding is.
And that's the number from 2019. I couldn't give you like the actual number today, but we can work with that number that's there.
Are some of these bonds prepayable so that you could
We've
them now and refund at a lower interest rate?
We have been doing that periodically. Our finance director, Anne Marie Berg, is really fantastic. And she has come to us and saved us millions and millions of dollars doing just exactly what you're suggesting.
And lastly, at least for now, if I could, I hear what you said, that there's a projected decrease in property taxes of $1 million, which is small. Property taxes are 500 and some million, right?
Yes.
Is there a plan going forward in the future for further decreases? Is that something that the County Board of Legislatures or the county supervisor has contemplated for the future?
Well, I can tell you that the county executive has mentioned that he would like to work as that being a goal for next year as well.
Okay, well, that was it for now.
Good.
Thank you so much.
We still should have coffee sometime. Yes, Estelle.
Hi, I'm Estelle Williams. I live in the village of Mamaroneck. I would like you to give some idea about how the county is addressing the issue of affordable housing in the county, what steps, and I'll sit down, but I do want to tell you that to the issue of pay raise, you in particular, as my legislator, you're everywhere, every day of the week, every night, everywhere I go, I see you. So I definitely am in favor of it. I think the optics are unfortunate, and I'm sure you're considering that as you consider the size of the increase. I don't deny that that the legislators are entitled to it, but so I'll sit down.
Thank you, Estelle. Affordable housing, that is a great question, and I'm so glad that you brought it up, because the good news for you in this budget is that we have $20 million set aside to find new properties and work with developers and communities to bring more affordable housing. We just got the affordable housing study for the county, and on that front, we have so much work to do. I will just say that, allowing for affordable housing, when you think about who that could benefit in our community, I can tell you the real life stories of who that can benefit. I know from an affordable housing project that we just did in one of my communities, somebody that I've known for many, many years, an older gentleman, hasn't been in the workforce probably for 15 years, lived very modestly and was really struggling in every way, shape, and form to stay in his community where his kids live and his grandkids live. And there was we had an affordable housing workshop for people that we sent out, we blasted out to the communities to say, come and find out about affordable housing and what the opportunities are. And I had sent that out, and I heard from him, and he said, I'm gonna try to be there. Well, it was packed to the gills with people. We literally had standing room only. And when I saw him there, I was really, really glad that he had heard about this. He had some questions. He spoke with our planning director. He spoke with the Rose Noonan, who's in charge of the program that we run, and he applied. And guess what? He got the housing. Well, now he's in the new affordable housing development. He said, this is a life changer. For another woman that I know, and again, I think these anecdotal stories are really important because people confuse affordable housing with a lot of other things, and it is really benefiting keeping people that are seniors in our communities, for young people who have just graduated college and want to stay in their communities, and that's my phone? Oh, please. I usually have it on silent. So for young people who are starting out, who then have to make the choice between living at home or sharing a place with 4 other people in Brooklyn, transit-oriented development and housing within our communities, this is a really great thing. For families, again, that are want to come out from the city, that are new to the area, know that we have great schools, this allows them to become first-time home buyers in some cases, because we have rentals and we have homes that you can buy. So my point is that this is only a benefit to Westchester County, and I am glad to see that there's $20 million new dollars that have been put in the budget for this. I've been a big advocate on this for many, many years, and even one of my communities, who shall rename nameless, Harrison. They were less interested in adding affordable housing. And several years ago, I went on the record saying that this should be, that they really have to understand this is a benefit to their community. I want to see this worked on, and they are. They're slowly starting to come around. I'm going to keep talking about it because it's really a good thing to all our communities. Anyone else with a question? Hi, Rodman.
Follow up with a second. I hear the discussion about wanting to try, but maybe after the
And actually, Mr. Malfitano, I had said when we started this portion that we were going to keep it to a half an hour. It seems like everybody's had a chance. You get the second bite of the apple.
Right.
But
We're all friends. We can all go have coffee later.
I will, so hold on one second. Mr. Reif, did you have a question?
I just want to say something.
We're going to let Mr. Reif go first since he hasn't spoken, and then see what time allows.
The only comment that I want to make is I think it's important for everybody. The county has 3 budgets. It's got the operating budget, which is what everybody typically talks about. It's got a capital budget we just heard about, and it's got a special districts budget. And I would suggest that everybody look at all three. And I urge our legislators to spend time on all three, particularly on the third one. The biggest risk that we face in the next 2 or 3 years is in the special districts budget.
Mr. Reif, by the way, does a fantastic job for all of us as a member of the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee, and you were my first appointee to one of our county boards, and I'm very grateful for the service that you've given for the last 6 years. Do you want to just explain for people watching what the special districts are?
Special districts are the sewer districts, of which there are 13. The water districts, which we in Mamaroneck do not participate in, and the refuse district, which most of the county, but not all the county, participates in. And in those districts, it's important to look at them because the county has used a great deal of the fund balance in the last couple of years. And the fund balance has been used, particularly in the prior administration, to fund and to reduce the property taxes. The fund balance is essentially gone, or will be gone at the end of this year. And that means that we are all facing a very significant property tax increase, far more, incidentally, than whatever the increase that we're talking about for county administrators and the legislatures. And it's really important to focus on that because to do anything, they are capital-intensive businesses, capital-intensive organizations. To make any impact in that environment takes years, takes strategic planning, takes significant investment, and so on. So that's where the biggest risk is from a financial perspective. And I urge all of us, I mean, the town does a great job in sending out tax bills that identify every single one of the taxes that come through the town. And that's where your county taxes exist, and it's split up. Not only do you see the county operating tax there, you see the county special districts tax there. It's really important to focus on that because the place that is going to probably increase the most, at least according where the numbers are today, is not on the county tax, not on the operating tax basis, but on the special districts taxes.
Right.
That's the biggest risk. And it's important because it requires significant, strategic, long-term planning to make a dent on that at all. And, you know, that's a very tough thing to do when you've got legislators who are reelected every 2 years, right? And so it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 2 days. It's not going to happen in 6 months. But the investments have to be made now so that we do not see, or we minimize what we see over the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just say that I appreciate everything that your work, and you have really been focused on the sewer district taxes. And in fact, you actually have Mr. Reif to thank for last year. We had a conversation prior to the budget, and you know, he made a very good point of saying that we should keep our sewer taxes below the tax cap like we look to do for our operating budget. And certainly we because of his input, that was exactly what we did do. So I thank you for that. As to the larger picture, and I don't disagree with much of what you say, I do think that as far as the reserve funds for those, we do need to be looking and managing that money prudently. But to the announcement will come out soon for the person that will be looking at the, you know, really the special districts and the what we can do to consolidate, and I think that there's going to be somebody who has financial planning experience and municipal experience, and my feeling is that's the right person to be looking at this job because it's going to be a number crunching job. So with that, We are, if you, I will
Yeah,
give
it's
you, Mr.
a very brief comment.
Very brief.
Yeah, well, first, I really I think that's very impressive, and we need to keep an eye on that because that is a big issue. But this is a part-time job. As a matter of fact, a legislator from New Rochelle, Ms. Clemens, is a full-time school teacher in New Rochelle. If we want to make this a full-time job, then we need to have restrictions on outside income. Okay? And I've often heard the argument, well, it's just a little bit. Well, I've heard that for the 40 or so years I've lived in Westchester, and everybody says it's a little bit. My school district says it's a little bit, the city, the county, everybody. But now I can't afford to stay in my house, and I live in the highest tax county in the United States. As they say, every little bit counts. So it's not a warranted raise going above the cost of living for 15 years every year. I don't know of anybody, even the CSEA doesn't like this, and that ought to tell you something. But thank you very much for the chance to speak with you.
You're welcome. And thank you to all that have come and for your input. I greatly, greatly appreciate all of you sharing your point of view. And for those watching at home, I would love to hear from you on this. Please, by all means, email my office at parker@westchesterlegislators.com for this or for anything else going on in the future. Thank you.